We moved to the country for peace. That's what my wife kept saying as she packed up our city apartment and loaded our lives into a rented trailer. Fresh air, quiet nights. It'll be good for the kids. Maybe she was right. Maybe not. The farmhouse sat on the edge of Morgan's field, a stretch of land that felt too big for its own silence. You could stand on the porch and see nothing but grass and wind for miles, like the world had forgotten this place even existed. I liked it that way at first. So did June, my wife. And the kids, Noah and Lily, seemed to adjust quickly. They'd run through the tall grass, chase each other between the weathered oaks, and laugh like ghosts had no business out here. But then we saw the horse. It appeared the second morning, just standing there motionless on the far side of the field. Midnight black, eyes like ink. It didn't graze, didn't flinch, didn't blink. Just stared. I figured it belonged to one of the neighboring farms and didn't think much of it. That was until Noah came to me after dinner that night, pale and shaking. "There's a man in the field," he whispered. "He's with the horse, but he's not moving." I walked him to the window. There was no man, just the horse, still staring, still as stone. "You probably imagined it, bud," I said, brushing his hair. He didn't respond, just kept looking. We shut the blinds that night, locked the doors. I told June it was probably some stray or wild animal, but she didn't buy it. "That's not how a horse behaves," she said. "That's not how anything behaves." The next morning it was closer, near the barn now, standing so still it looked carved from shadow. I grabbed the old binoculars we'd found in the attic and zoomed in. His eyes, they weren't right, too human, too aware. I swear to God it smiled, just for a second. I dropped the binoculars and told the kids to stay inside. June was already pacing. "Something's wrong," she muttered. "I read something about this place online, back when we bought it. There was a man owned the land before us, Samuel Greaves. He was found dead in the barn, trampled, but there were no horse tracks." I laughed, trying to make it light. "So what? Now we've got a ghost horse." She didn't laugh. That night we heard hoofbeats, slow, measured, like something pacing the outside of the house. Lily screamed when she saw the silhouette through her window. A massive head, long mane, just standing there, inches from the glass. I ran outside with a flashlight and a hammer. There was nothing there, but I could smell it. Wet dirt, iron, decay. That was the first night the dreams started. I was back in the barn, but it wasn't ours. It was older, rotted, full of shadows. Something moved behind the hay bales. I could hear it breathing, heavy and wrong. When I turned, the horse was there. Its face inches from mine, its teeth chipped and stained. It opened its mouth and spoke. "You shouldn't be here." I woke up choking, heart slamming against my ribs. Noah had the same dream. He told me at breakfast, described it in chilling detail. June looked at me, terrified. "This isn't just a dream," she said. "It's a warning." We decided to leave that day, packed the car, locked the house, didn't even bother cleaning up. But when I turned the key in the ignition, the car wouldn't start. Battery was fine. Tank was full. Just dead silence. Lily started crying. That's when we heard it again. The hoofbeats, coming closer. June screamed. We turned toward the window, and there it was, standing on the porch, staring through the glass. But this time it wasn't alone. Behind it, half hidden in the doorway, stood a man. His face was missing, just skin and shadow where his features should have been. And I knew right then what June had meant. This wasn't a haunting. It was a trap, and we had already stepped too far inside. I didn't sleep that first night. Neither did Sarah. We lay in the dark, the silence pressing in around us like the walls of a coffin. Outside, the wind moaned low across the fields, and every creak of the old farmhouse sounded like footsteps. But what kept me awake wasn't the settling of wood or the groan of wind. It was the neighing, distant but clear. Not the usual call of a restless horse, but something more guttural, pained, like it was choking on a scream. The next morning I found hoofprints, deep ones, sunk into the earth just beyond the fence. Too deep, No horse should leave prints like that unless it weighed a ton or was running in a panic. But the tracks didn't start anywhere. They just began. As if the horse had stepped into the world from nowhere. Sarah saw them too. She didn't say much, just gripped my hand tight enough to hurt. Ellie and Mason were inside, eating cereal and watching cartoons. Oblivious. I wanted to keep it that way. Maybe it's just some neighbor's horse, I said, even though the nearest ranch was miles off. That afternoon, I checked the barn. It smelled like rot. Not hay or animal, but old, festering rot, like meat left too long in the sun. I covered my nose and opened the side stall. That's when I saw it. The horse. Jet black.
Manya tangled.
I was wrong. Too human in their shape. Too full of hate. It was just standing there in the far corner of the stall, breathing heavy, watching me. I blinked, and it was gone. No sound. No movement. Just an empty stall and that lingering stench. I stumbled back, heart racing. I wanted to believe I'd imagined it. A trick of the light, fatigue, something. But the marks on the stall door said otherwise, scratches. Long and deep, like hooves, but deliberate, carved into the wood like words in a diary. Later, I went to town, asked around. The folks at the diner got quiet when I mentioned the Oldmore property. One guy, Frank, I think, finally spoke. "You bought that place?" he asked. "Thought they tore it down." They? The county. After what happened to Richard Moore. Poor bastard was found trampled in that barn. But here's the thing. There weren't no signs of the horse ever getting out.
Gatelukt.
No broken boards. Just a body. And a trail of blood that stopped halfway through the field. I asked what happened to the horse. He just shrugged. Never found it. Folks say it's still there, though. Waiting. I didn't tell Sarah that part. That night, I locked every door and window, double-checked the barn. Nothing there. But the hoof prints were back, leading right up to the back porch. Sarah saw them this time too. She didn't ask questions. Just took the kids upstairs and locked the bedroom. We slept in shifts, or tried to. Around 3 a.m., the lights flickered, and I heard it again. Not neighing this time, breathing, right outside the window. When I looked, all I saw was fog on the glass, and something long and black vanishing into the darkness. I didn't sleep again that night, and in the morning, Ellie said something that made my blood run cold. "I saw a horse in my room," she whispered over breakfast. "It had eyes like mine." I wanted to tell her she imagined it. I wanted to say, "Ellie, it was just a dream," or, "You probably saw a shadow," but I couldn't. Not after what I'd seen. Not after what I felt last night. Standing at that window with my breath fogging up the glass and that thing on the other side. Instead, I asked carefully, "What do you mean it had eyes like yours?" Ellie kept her spoon in her cereal, not looking up. Same color, same little freckle under the left one. It just stared at me. It didn't move. Sarah leaned across the table. "Sweetheart, when did this happen?" "Last night, when the lights flickered." My eyes met Sarah's. We didn't say anything, but we didn't have to. We were way past coincidence now. After breakfast, I made a plan. We'd leave, sell the property, get back to somewhere normal. But first, I needed to know what we were up against. I went back to the barn. This time, I took a crowbar, a flashlight, and a healthy dose of dread. The place smelled even worse than before. The stench had sunk into the wood like the building itself had started to rot from the inside out. I stepped into the stall where I saw the horse. The floor was covered in straw, but something stuck out underneath. I pried it loose. A horseshoe. Old, rusted, bent. But something was carved into it. Words. No, a name. R. Moore. Richard Moore. The previous owner. I turned it over in my hands, then noticed the edge was sharp. Like it had been filed, turned into something else. A weapon. Had Moore tried to defend himself? That's when I heard it. A thud. Heavy. Like something just landed behind me. I spun around. Nothing. But the air had changed. The light from my flashlight looked thinner, more strained. I could hear breathing again. Slow and wet. as if coming through a broken nose. Then the whisper, not in my ear but in my head. "Why did you come here?" I ran. Didn't look back. Didn't stop until I was halfway to the house. That night, we tried to pack. Sarah shoved clothes into duffel bags. I grabbed passports, cash, anything we could use to just go. But the moment I stepped outside to load the car, all 4 tires had been shredded. Deep gashes, like from hooves made of razors, and painted on the driver's window, in thick black streaks of what I prayed was mud. "You stay." I backed away slowly, heart pounding like a war drum. That's when I saw Mason standing at the porch, his little face pale. "What's wrong, buddy?" He pointed to the barn. "She's calling him again," he said. I blinked. "She? The horse?" he said simply, as if it made perfect sense. "She's telling him to do it. She says this was her land first." I looked at the barn. The doors were open. I was sure I'd locked them. The barn doors were wide open, creaking gently in the wind that shouldn't have existed. No one had touched them. I was sure of it. I told Sarah to keep the kids inside and lock the door. My voice was calm, but my hands were shaking as I took the crowbar again and stepped toward the barn. Every instinct in me screamed to leave it alone, to run, but there was no running now. Not when Mason said she was calling. The fog rolled in so fast it felt like it had a purpose. Thick and gray, swallowing the ground and sky, making the barn look like it was floating in nothing. By the time I crossed the threshold, I couldn't see the house anymore, just shadows. Moving. The mare was back. Same position. Same breathless stare. But this time she was looking directly at me. And I felt it. Like someone had reached into my chest and grabbed hold of something old. Something I hadn't thought about in decades. Suddenly, I wasn't in the barn anymore. I was 11 again, standing in my childhood backyard. My dog was dying in my arms, hit by a car. Couldn't save him. I blinked, and I was back. I took a step closer to the mare, my boots crunching on straw and broken glass. Her eyes followed me, burning bright yellow in the dark. Her mane was dripping wet with something I didn't want to identify. Then I saw it, burn marks across her side. Old healed wrong, like someone had branded her out of rage, not ranching. A voice echoed behind me. "You see it now, don't you?" I turned. No one. Just that voice. Raspy, bitter, human. "She remembers," it said, even after the skin rotted off her bones. I backed up, bumping into the stall wall. "I don't know what you are," I said aloud, "but we don't belong here. We didn't do this." The mare stepped forward, one hoof at a time. No sound, no breathing, just movement, unnatural and deliberate, like her body was being puppet. And then, just inches from me, she stopped, lowered her head, and whispered, yes, whispered, "Murder." I stumbled back, tripped and hit the dirt floor. When I looked up again, she was gone, as if she'd never been there. But something else was in her place. A photograph, black and white, curled at the edges. I picked it up slowly, careful like it might burn. It showed a man, Richard Moore, I assumed, standing next to the same mare, only she looked alive then. Healthy, happy even. But behind them in the frame, barely visible, was a shadow. Another figure, someone holding a rifle. The back of the photo had one word scratched into it. Jealousy. I brought it back to the house. Sarah sat at the kitchen table, arms wrapped around Mason and Ellie. They were shaking, not crying, shaking. "We're not alone," she whispered. "I don't mean the horse." I nodded. "I know." That night, the house felt like it was shrinking. Walls closer than they used to be. The lights dimmer, even when new bulbs were screwed in. Every floorboard groaned, like something was moving under them. I kept hearing hooves outside. Except they weren't outside anymore. They were in the hallway, dragging, scraping, stopping just outside our bedroom door. We didn't sleep. We just listened, until the sun rose. But even then, I couldn't shake the feeling that the sun didn't want to rise that morning. That something forced it to, like it was trying to keep up appearances. to lull us back into a false sense of control. But I wasn't fooled. Not anymore, because now I knew the truth. This wasn't just a haunting. It was a possession, and whatever had taken the mare wanted us next. The next morning, I called the realtor. I told her we were leaving. No negotiations, no second thoughts. She laughed. Not the kind of laugh you want to hear from someone who's supposed to help you. I figured it wouldn't take long, she said, her voice brittle. No one stays more than a week. You knew, I snapped. You knew about the mare? About what happened here? Silence. Then, a soft, "Did you see her eyes?" I hung up. That day we packed, threw clothes into bags, grabbed the kids' essentials, left dishes in the sink. I didn't care. I just wanted out. But as we carried our bags to the car, the ground shook. Not a little tremor. A deep, rolling groan, like something was waking up below us. Ellie screamed. Mason dropped his backpack and covered his ears. The horses in the neighboring field bolted, crashing through fences like they were fleeing a wildfire. Except we didn't see any flames, only dust, and a shape. The mare stood in the middle of the driveway, motionless, blocking our exit. She wasn't alone. The earth behind her had cracked open, like a scar splitting the land, and crawling from it, inch by inch, were limbs, hands, fingers, twisting out of the dirt like they were trying to pull the rest of something free. Sarah gasped. "Oh God! Those aren't people, are they?" I didn't answer, because I didn't know, and part of me didn't want to. I grabbed the kids and shoved them into the car. Sarah jumped into the driver's seat. "Drive," I told her. "I'll deal with the horse." She looked at me like I was insane. "What are you going to do?" I didn't answer. I just stepped toward the mare. She didn't flinch, just watched me with those glowing, human-like eyes. And then she spoke, this time not in a whisper, but a clear, choked voice. "Buried beneath lies," she said. "He loved me, but they didn't. They killed him, took everything, left me here." Her breath steamed in the warm morning air. "He promised he'd return, but it wasn't him who did."
Ister here.
"You're not just haunted. You're holding on to him, aren't you?" The ground cracked wider. A face, rotted and gray, emerged from the split earth. A man's face, twisted with agony and rage. The mare turned her head slightly, as if nuzzling the decayed memory. "Richard," she said, "they'll never leave, not until justice is done." The thing in the ground reached for me. Sarah slammed on the horn. The mare shrieked, an awful, ear-splitting cry that sounded like both a horse and a woman, the kind of scream that rattles your bones. And then she charged me. I jumped out of the way. She ran past, straight into the cracked earth, and disappeared. So did the face. So did the hands. The ground sealed itself like nothing had ever happened. The dust settled. The sun came out, and for the first time since we moved in, felt like we could breathe. We didn't ask questions. We didn't go back for the last suitcase. We got in the car and we drove, as fast and far as we could. But halfway down the road, Mason asked something that chilled me more than anything else. "Dad," he said quietly, "do you think the mare let us go?" I didn't know what to say, because the truth was, I wasn't sure. We stayed in a motel 2 towns over that night. Just a cheap place with flickering neon signs and paper-thin walls. But it had 4 locks on the door, and none of them looked like they'd been forced open recently. I didn't sleep. Neither did Sarah. Mason curled into a ball beside me. Ellie stayed awake, sitting on the edge of the bed, legs dangling, staring at the dark TV screen like it might come alive at any moment. It wasn't over. I could feel it in my bones. At 3:17 a.m., Ellie spoke. "Daddy?" she whispered. "Yeah." She turned to look at me, and I saw it, just for a second. Her eyes weren't hers. They were too big, too deep, and in the center, where a child's fear should have lived, I saw calm. The same calm I'd seen in the mare. "Did we leave her behind?" Ellie asked. I didn't know what to say, so I lied. "We're safe now." She nodded slowly. "Okay." But when she turned back to the TV screen, her reflection didn't follow. Stayed facing me, grinning. I got out of bed, heart pounding. Walked to the window, pulled the curtain back. The parking lot was empty. No cars, no people. Just a single set of hoof prints in the concrete. Deep, cracked, like they'd burned into the ground. I stumbled back, breathing hard. Sarah grabbed my arm. "What's wrong?" I didn't answer. I didn't want to say it out loud, because if I did, it might become real. But deep down, I knew. She didn't stay behind. She came with us. Maybe she had unfinished business. Maybe she wasn't done telling her story. Or maybe, just maybe, she found something in us she'd been looking for all along. A new place to live. A new voice to whisper through. A new family to haunt. We never went back to that land. We never sold it either. Just left it there. Let the grass take it back. Let the trees creep closer. Let the barn rot. Some nights, I still hear hooves outside my window, even in the city, even 12 stories up. Sometimes, I hear Ellie talk in her sleep, and sometimes her voice doesn't sound like hers. It sounds older, sadder, angrier. I keep telling myself we escaped, but part of me wonders, what if we didn't? What if the curse isn't tied to the land? What if it's tied to us now? If you ever come across a place for sale out in the countryside, a house too cheap, too quiet, too far from town, walk away. Because sometimes the ghosts don't wait for you to move in. Sometimes they're already looking through your eyes, waiting for a way out. The next few weeks were quiet, almost too quiet. We went about our lives, doing what people do to forget the things that haunt them. Work, school, dinners, the normal stuff. But there was a tension in the air, something I couldn't shake. Sarah noticed it too. "Are you sure we're okay?" she asked one night, as I stood by the window looking out at the stars. I turned to her, trying to sound confident, though the doubt gnawed at me like a slow-burning fire. "We're fine," I lied, though deep down I knew the truth. There was something out there, something still looking for us, still waiting. It was only a matter of time before the past caught up to us. And then one evening, Mason was out in the backyard, playing with his new soccer ball. I was making dinner when I heard him yell, "Mom! Dad!" I rushed outside, panic clawing at my chest. Mason was standing by the fence, pointing at something in the distance. I followed his finger. At first, I thought it was just a trick of the light, but then I saw it. The barn. The same barn. The same old, decrepit building from the cursed land. It was there, standing tall, like it had never been abandoned. But how? We hadn't gone back. I rushed forward, but before I could reach Mason, I felt it. A cold gust of wind, sharp and biting, rushed through the yard. The trees shook, the sky darkened, and there it was again, the whisper. But this time it was louder, clearer, and it wasn't just in my head. It came from the barn. I couldn't move. I stood frozen, staring at the barn, my heart hammering in my chest. The whisper became a voice. "Come back! Come back!" I didn't know how, but I knew. I knew it was her. The mare. The thing that haunted us. It was calling us back, trying to pull us toward the place we swore we'd left behind. My legs moved before my mind could catch up. I ran toward the barn, faster than I ever thought I could. Sarah screamed for me to stop, but I didn't hear her. Couldn't. As I reached the barn, the door creaked open slowly. There was no one inside.
No horses. No bodies.
Just darkness. I stepped in, drawn by some force I couldn't explain. And then it came. The vision. I was back in the fields of the old land. The barn stood in front of me, but now it was alive. The air was thick with dust and death. The mare stood there, its eyes glowing in the moonlight. It neighed, a sound that twisted my insides. And then, in the distance, I saw him, the old man, the one whose spirit had cursed the land. He looked at me, his eyes filled with rage. He pointed a trembling finger at me, and I felt something cold wrap around my throat. "You're not finished," he whispered, his voice as ancient as the land itself. "Not yet." The mare stepped forward, and I could feel its breath against my face, hot and foul. The ground beneath me shifted, and I stumbled back, eyes wide with fear. But then, just as quickly, everything went dark. I woke up outside the barn, lying in the grass, gasping for air. Sarah was there, holding me. Mason stood beside her, his face pale. "What happened?" she asked, voice shaking. I didn't answer. Couldn't. Because deep down I knew. The curse wasn't over. It never would be. And as I looked out across the land, I heard it again. The whisper, the call. The mare was out there, waiting. The air in the barn was thick with dread. I stood there, flashlight trembling in my hand, sweat slicking my palms. The others, Emily, Josh, and Lila, huddled behind me. The door creaked in the wind, half torn from its hinges, groaning like some dying beast. And then we heard it again. Hooves, pounding, echoing, but not on the ground. From above, from the rafters, Josh whispered, "It's not real. It's not real." But it was. It always had been. The horse, a thing of shadow and blood and memory, dropped down like a specter from the ceiling. Its eyes glowed red in the flashlight beam. It wasn't just a ghost. It was fury. It was grief. It was unfinished business incarnate. Emily screamed and pulled Lila closer. I stepped forward, heart hammering. "I know what you are," I said, not sure if I was speaking to the horse or whatever was inside it. "You're not just angry. You're hurt. You were left to rot. Betrayed." The horse didn't charge. It just stared, breathing heavy, waiting. Then something changed in its posture, its head cocked slightly. Curious, I kept talking. "He was your owner, and someone killed him, left you behind. You've been trapped ever since, waiting for someone to remember, to care." His hooves scraped the ground. A low, guttural noise rumbled from its throat, almost mournful. I felt something shift in me, like I wasn't afraid anymore, like somehow I understood the thing. "I saw the papers," I said, my voice shaking. "Your name was Diablo. You were his only family. And when they murdered him, they left you to starve." Emily gasped behind me. "You think it's him? In the horse?" I nodded. "Or what's left of him." For a moment, everything went still. The wind died, the smell of rot faded, and the red light in the horse's eyes dimmed. Almost human. I took one more step forward, raising my hand. "It's over. You don't have to stay here anymore." The creature neighed, a scream that split the air and then surged forward. I closed my eyes, bracing for the end. But there was no pain, just warmth. I opened my eyes to see the horse standing inches away, breathing hard, eyes locked on mine. It lowered its head. For a second, it bowed. Then, just like that, it turned, walked back into the shadows of the barn, and vanished. We left the property the next morning. Didn't speak a word the entire drive. No one ever came to buy the land again. Eventually, the town condemned it, called it haunted, said it was dangerous, full of unstable structures and bad memories. But I know the truth. Diablo wasn't evil. He was grieving, and in a strange, broken way, he just wanted to be remembered. I still dream of hooves in the night sometimes, of breath on my neck and glowing red eyes watching from the treeline. But it's different now. I don't run anymore. I listen, and I remember, because some ghosts don't want to hurt you. They just want someone to see them,